want to talk to you again today about things related to security, but in this case, I'm going to talk about policy instead of actual technology. It's important to have technology that protects your systems, but it's equally important to have policies in place that protect your business. One of the policies that you should have in place is what they call an acceptable use policy or a computer usage policy. This policy basically spells out to employees what's okay to do on a computer and what's not okay to do. The basic premise here is that the company owns the computer that the employee is using, and the employee needs to be made aware that the activities that they do can be monitored, can be recorded, can be reviewed, and it should spell out an acceptable use policy should spell out what you specifically want the employees to do or not to do with your computer connections and computer systems. So some of the things that should be included in a computer usage policy, some basic security things like passwords. You should definitely highlight that passwords should never be shared, and you should have a policy in place that requires passwords to be changed on a regular basis. You should also specifically forbid employees from installing unapproved software. Employees installing software that hasn't been reviewed or approved by your IT department or your IT consultants can result in a risk to your business by an employee installing software that contains a virus or some sort of malware. It also has the risk of making the employee's computer unstable. Some software just doesn't work well and can actually crash systems pretty easily. Another thing that should be included in an acceptable use policy is email usage. You should make sure that the employees know that email is for business usage only. You should make sure that they're aware that anything that's sent or received from their computer or their email account is really the property of the company, and there's no expectation of privacy involved. I think sometimes just highlighting to employees that there's really no expectation of privacy does a lot to cut back on some undesirable activities that employees might otherwise engage in. You certainly wouldn't want employees using your computer systems to job hunt or something like that. And as long as they're aware of the fact that their usage can be monitored and reviewed, I think that cuts back on some of that. Employees also need to be aware that any files that are contained on the computer are the property of the company, and there's no expectation of privacy for those files. The usage policy should specifically state that any illegal activity is prohibited. It should also specifically ban transmitting or receiving material that's discriminatory, defamatory, harassing, insulting, pornographic, obscene, anything like that. Even though it may not be technically illegal, you want to make sure that anything that might be actionable by anyone outside of your company is specifically banned by your policy. And again, you should have some technology in place to prevent those kinds of things happening, but at the same time, you need to have a written policy and a signed agreement from the employee saying that they understand the policy. The policy should warn that misuse of the computer systems is subject to discipline up to and including termination. And again, I want to say that you should advise your employees that there's no expectation of privacy for any emails or messages or files that are stored on the computer or originate from their email account. There's a couple of reasons for all of this. One is misuse of computer systems is a big productivity drain. I think everyone's aware of that. Statistics are alarming. As much as 14 to 15% of employees or even more in some cases waste over 3 hours a day just playing around on the internet or surfing Facebook or social sites, things like that. So it's important for productivity that you try to keep your employees focused on using the computer for business purposes. But even more important, an acceptable use policy that's in place, that's reviewed and signed by the employee, is a liability shield for the company. If an employee should do something illegal or actionable from one of your computers, if you don't have a written acceptable use policy in place, the employee can make the defense that they thought it was okay or something like that, and you could share in some of the liability because it was your system that was enabling the employee to make an attack on someone or do something illegal. So you need to have an acceptable use policy in place. It needs to be signed by every employee, and this provides a good solid liability shield for your company. Now, I'm not a lawyer. This shouldn't be taken as legal advice by any means, but that is one of the compelling reasons why you need to have an acceptable use policy in place. So speak to your attorney about it. If you need help drafting that, there are some templates online. So again, this is Jeff Johnson with IntelliCore, just trying to provide some information that I think is helpful to small businesses. I hope this information has been useful to you. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them on this post. And I hope you have a great day.